Hi, my name is Eva, and today I'm going to talk about Mandela Effects and the hyoid bone and how it's changed in the last 4 or 5 years for me. Okay, so here's the hyoid bone. It's basically a bone under the jaw here that is a standalone bone. It's not attached to the main skeleton. Now, I first heard of this hyoid bone about 4 or 5 years ago, and at that time it was called the hyroid bone. I've noticed that somewhere along the line the R has fallen out, so now it's a hyoid bone. Now, when I first heard about this bone, it was maybe a few inches lower down. It was a lot smaller. It still had a slight U shape, but not as prominent as it does now. And it was associated with the voice box and the development of human ability to speak. But as you'll see later here, that has changed what it's supposedly being used for now. So when I first heard of it, the storyline was that only humans had the hyoid bone, and it was probably what allowed us to develop speech and become more advanced than the other creatures, as no hyoid bone existed in any of the other creatures. But you'll see that that has changed. Now the hyoid bone does exist in other animals, but it's more attached to the skeleton. It is less standalone in the other animals. Now it is a lot larger. Okay, so here's a little wiki on the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is a horseshoe-shaped bone situated in the anterior midline of the neck between the chin and thyroid cartilage. Unlike other bones, the hyoid is only distantly articulated to other bones by muscles or ligaments. The hyoid is anchored by muscles from the anterior, blah, blah, blah. The hyoid bone provides attachment to the muscles of the floor of the mouth and the tongue above and larynx below, and the epiglottis and pharynx behind. Okay, now what I remember is it was attached to the larynx and helped us to form sounds. But it looks now like it's a lot more involved with tongue movement. That was never mentioned when I first heard of it, even though they had like a whole show on the hyroid bone at that time. Okay, here's functions. It allows a wider range of tongue, pharyngeal, and laryngeal movements by bracing these structures alongside each other in order to produce variation. Now, what I remember is it was only associated with laryngeal movements originally, but it's a lot bigger now, so I think maybe the function has expanded. It's just kind of interesting to see this thing change. Okay, so this image doesn't add a lot, but it does use the old term that I remember, hyroid bone, human hyroid bone illustration. Now it's just hyoid bone, so this is kind of a residual for me. There's a x-ray of it. It's pretty big. You can see these huge vertebral spikes coming off here. Those things just keep growing and growing. All right, so anyways, here's an image of about the shape of the hyoid bone now. Originally, I did not see these fangs. These fangs offshoots here keep growing, and the thing is it's just huge now compared to when I first saw it. Okay, this is a little blurb. This actually reminds me of the storyline I saw 4 or 5 years ago. The hyoid bone is the only human bone that is attached to only muscles, not to another bone. Our hyoid is attached to tongue muscles, throat muscles, and jaw muscles. Okay, I don't remember the tongue muscles and throat muscles and jaw muscles thing, but I do remember it as being the only standalone bone, and that it helped work together to help us produce thousands of vocalizations. And here's kind of an image of all the structure of it right now. What's interesting about this is that it's totally wrong. It is not the only standalone bone. It is not the only human bone that is attached to only muscles, not to another bone. Because in the last couple videos, I talked about, first of all, you've got the patella here. That's totally a standalone bone. It is not touched to other bones. And then also I talked about the sesamoid bones, which are all over the body, and they are all not attached to other bones. And also you've got all these accessory bones. So all over the body, feet, hands, knee, and sometimes the vertebral column, back of the neck, there are other bones that are standalone bones that are not attached to the main skeleton. So this storyline here, which is what I remember being true about 4 or 5 years ago, is now completely wrong. This person apparently didn't know that standalone bones are all over the body, which I find really interesting. All right, so blinding you with science. Oh, geez. Okay. So let's see, we covered those two. And I think that's all I had for today. That the hyroid bone has changed from hyroid to hyoid, and it continues changing. So I think it would be wise for people to kind of keep an eye on the shape of this bone here, another one of these standalone bones. For me, all the standalone bones are new. The patella used to be a cartilage, now it is bone. This hyoid came about 4 or 5 years ago. It keeps changing. We have all these sesamoid bones now. So these standalone bones to me are all new, and I definitely plan to kind of keep an eye on them to see how they develop. So anyway, that's it for today. This is Eva signing off. Once Upon a Timeline.